Mark Moore from Free Thinking Therapies. Hope you're well. For those who haven't seen me before, I'm a hypnotherapist based in Leicestershire. I also do some counselling. I use a lot of NLP in my hypnotherapy, that's neuro-linguistic programming. I teach mindfulness meditation, I practice that as well. And I also give talks to charities, organisations and businesses that are designed to provoke thought and conversation around mental health and well-being, how we can maintain that, and wherever possible we can improve it as well. I've been talking over on social media within the community there about some of the issues affecting us during lockdown and some of the issues around mental health and well-being. And one thing that keeps cropping up repeatedly at the moment is this word boredom. Everyone's feeling bored and frustrated. So this week I just want to talk a little bit about what the causes of boredom are, why this might be happening to us, and maybe some ways we can try and avoid it or appreciate what's happening and what's happening in our minds and ourselves. So boredom is normally seen as having nothing to do. We see it as an unpleasant and uncomfortable emotional state where we just lack interest and we just find it difficult to concentrate on whatever it is that we're doing. The condition actually corresponds more precisely to the French term ennui. And this is an existential perception of life's futility, if you like. This is the consequences of unfulfilled aspirations, it's called to. But back to our reality. The fact is we all suffer from boredom at some time in our life. In fact, lots of times. 30 to 90% of us experience boredom daily at some point. And just for record, men generally get more bored than women do. But what causes it? Why do we get bored? There's probably 7 or 8 things I can think of that I think are relevant to us and certainly affecting us probably at the moment. A big one is monotony. Boredom is like mental fatigue. So any repetitive jobs or tasks or just repetitive functions where we just lack interest in what we're doing will create boredom. Anything that requires continual attention, so standing in a queue, like when we're waiting at the airport, that kind of thing, has the same effect. So too much of the same thing or too little stimulation will both create the same feeling of boredom. Something I think of as a sort of lack of progress or lack of flow. So if you think about when we become involved in our tasks, this expression when we get in the zone, when our abilities are matched to the job that we're doing and we feel competent, we can see our goals clearly, we can recognise what we're doing and we feel engaged, then we work fine. But if the task doesn't really challenge us, then we'll become bored. The opposite of this is if a task is too difficult, we become anxious and worried. Some of us are more prone to boredom than others. Those thrill seekers, those people who need excitement. So if we're normally on the go 24/7, that's sort of up with the lark, still out with the owl. If we're physically active and socially engaged all the time, then when we're forced to stop, as in the current sort of lockdown situation, or maybe when we're ill and we can't get out and do these things, then we will become bored more quickly than the rest. Bear in mind, these people can no longer get their adrenaline fix and the resulting mental and emotional stimulation that's associated with that. Boredom can often be a vicious cycle, because when we're bored, we just find it hard to focus. Then we lose interest because we can't concentrate on what it is we're trying to do. We become disengaged in that subject and therefore more bored. Another problem could just be emotional awareness. Often when you say to a friend or particular child when they're bored, what do you want? And they'll say, I don't know. And that can actually be very true, because if we don't really know what we want, then we are more likely to feel bored. And if we don't know what it is we want to feel happy, then we just become more and more bored. Something very relevant to, I think, the modern age is just our lack of inner amusement skills or inner amusement skills. This is when we just simply can't amuse ourselves anymore. We've become or are becoming reliant upon external sources of stimulation and arousal. And by this I mean the games consoles, TVs, the tablets, etc. And the more we lose the internal process that we would normally use to entertain ourselves, then we just fail. It's difficult to find ways to be creative and ways to entertain ourselves. And it's not difficult. Children who do tend to have lack of access to things like games consoles, TV, generally will have better imaginations, be more creative in their play. And if we remove that and create or stimulate them artificially, if you like, then they'd lose that ability. Another big issue for boredom is sometimes just having no autonomy. Often when people are bored, they say, I feel trapped, I feel stuck. So if we can't achieve what we think we like to do, what we want to do, then we will say we feel bored. How often do children complain of being bored when they can't go out, or when we say you can't go on your console, they say, oh, I'm bored. That instant reaction, they feel trapped, they feel out of control. You've taken that control away from them. And I also just want to mention sort of the role of culture. I think boredom, if I recall, was non-existent. Not that I was around in the 18th century, but it was non-existent, I read, before the 18th century. In early human history, our ancestors spent most of their time having to find food, shelter, security, etc. There was no time for boredom. It didn't exist. It wasn't an option. There is the question, I suppose, that boredom has some benefits. I think it's a great way just to have some time for thought and reflection. Maybe it's a time to ask yourself if the job you're doing is of any value, or is it a waste of time, an opportunity just to stop doing that job. And that's about being realistic, and am I just creating some work to try and kill the boredom I currently feel. But understanding boredom is, I think, the first part of trying to deal with it. Ways that we can alleviate and change boredom. I think one of the biggest recommendations I do make to clients is music is a great boredom buster. Think how certain tracks, certain songs from the past and the present can evoke real mood, real emotional changes in yourself. It's also a good way of just blocking out crowd noise, ambient noise, and just distracting from crowds and what's going on around you. It's worth remembering that boredom is not about lack of things to do, it's about the lack of things that you want to do. I think that's the key difference. So often it's about finding things that you do want to do, things that you want to engage with. But sometimes it's also about just doing the things that are there to be done, those chores that you've been putting off and avoiding. Sometimes we can have too much time, so it's worth always keep your schedule reasonably full. Too much spare time is not always a good thing. We might want to be creative and a little bit inventive to find things to do. But just remind yourself of how busy you were before lockdown, and just find some of those things or new activities to fill the time that you've got. It's also important, I think, to learn to enjoy your own company. We come here alone into life and we leave alone. So just take time to get used to being alone sometimes. Those of us in busy environments often thrive and can't wait just to get 5, 10, 15 minutes on our own, even a little bit longer sometimes, just away from the noise and crowd. So learn to experience, learn to enjoy that as well. Notice the good things about yourself. You know, it's not about seeking perfection and constantly striving. Just treat yourself with love, respect and kindness. These are the things that we often expect from other people, but we fail to get ourselves. We're constantly beating ourselves up. Always want to be on the go, always want to be producing and achieving something. A good way to feel better is to do something charitable. Doing something for somebody else, doing something good, will make you feel good. I'll guarantee it. And are you bored, or are you maybe just disconnecting from life to avoid something? It's surprising how many people want to avoid maybe a negative emotion, sadness, anger, fear, or something else. Or even just might be hiding from something more obvious, a difficult marriage, an uncomfortable relationship. People don't want to face it, so we just switch off. We avoid those feelings and become disengaged with life, our thoughts and feelings, and I think we We often do this unconsciously. We don't know also where we do it. So sometimes you need to just maybe take a moment and think, am I avoiding something? Am I hiding from something? If that might be the case, then it's worth just sitting quietly. If you know what it is, then acknowledge what it is and start to give that some careful thought. Again, just be gentle with yourself. If it's something you've avoided, don't rush into it and confront it. If nothing comes to mind, then just start playing through your life a bit like a movie. Just look at various scenes, various aspects until something comes up that you will probably recognise as something you avoid, something that's uncomfortable, something that's not pleasant in your life right now. And when that happens, just take time to look at it, accept what it is, and maybe just consider the negative impact, what it's doing to you, how it's making you feel, those thoughts, those emotions that are surfacing. Because often boredom is just a way, as I say, of disengaging from something we don't want to experience. And if that is the case, then take time, find someone to talk to a friend, get some support, and start to explore and deal with that emotion that's keeping you away from engaging with your life, your happiness and your well-being. And a good way is also think about doing some exercise, think about your diet. Both diet and exercise can have huge effects on our emotions and our well-being. Check your alcohol and caffeine intake and consider how your physical activity might be reduced by lockdown or changing circumstance. We don't always recognise how far we walk around our offices, factories, warehouses, etc. And many people haven't found replacements or substitutes for the 2 or 3 sessions they're doing at the gym each week. Since lockdowns come in, they've just stopped, maybe just not giving it another thought. They've been busy just dealing with other stuff, these emotional states that we all seem to be chasing in. So take time to put yourself at the front of your mind. Hopefully some of these tips will just make you aware of the things that might be creating the boredom. And a few little tips there, hopefully just to make you think about how you can alleviate some of the boredom as well. It's about keeping busy. And in this instance, not just about engaging with other people, but I think very much about engaging with ourselves, what we're experiencing, what we're feeling, what we're thinking. So I hope you found it useful and you can take some of this through lockdown, through this pandemic, and hopefully beyond, to look at and consider your own well-being, your own mental health, to feel happier, calmer, and I think importantly, in control as well. So if you found the video useful, please give it a like, tell your friends about it, and you can join me on social media where I talk about anything that's trending around mental health, therapy, and help that's available to the community at large. You can also pop over to my website, look at the therapies and help that's available through there, not just through myself, but other therapists and counsellors in your area, all around the country who are there, willing and wanting to help people. I've also got offers on there, and hopefully post-lockdown we can engage again face-to-face and get back to making everyone's tomorrow a little bit better than their yesterday. So until next week, keep safe, keep well. This is Mark saying goodbye. Bye.